Warning, you are going to hear truths and facts today about all forms of exploitation. Reality, we are not going to sugarcoat it. Human rights abuses. So buckle up and let's get started. Marcel Vanderwatt joins the Warriors today. He's back. We haven't spoken in a while, but he is back. He's an incredible warrior in the movement of dignity and freedom. And I must share, Marcel, some of your incredible background. It is so important. You know what, Doctor? I'm going to call you Doctor now. Dr. Marcel Vanderwatt is now the president, and this is very exciting, of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. He brings over 22 years of experience, expertise in combating the interconnected criminal economies of organized crime, human trafficking, and sexual exploitation, everything we talk about nonstop right here on the Warriors. Marcel has earned global recognition for his leadership, investigative expertise, and research contributions. His extensive background as a police investigator, hostage and suicide negotiator, and criminal case consultant continues to inform and inspire his work today. Marcel has consulted and provided expert court testimony in several sex trafficking cases, briefed our members of Congress here in the United States on issues related to all of this online criminality going on, and he's engaged in so many other things internationally. But I want to get to his voice. I know you don't want to hear mine. There's so much more, and we'll have it all in the body of the video about Marcel Vanderwatt. But we're very blessed to have him because he is fighting right now in Washington, D.C. for everybody and across the country to bring freedom. And you know what? At the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, they believe that a free world from sexual abuse and exploitation is possible. And that is what Marcel Vanderwatt believes. So I want all of you, this is very important, listen up and listen good, to support the work of the center. Follow along. The website is endsexualexploitation.org. Again, I will have all information in the body of this video. The quiz will be next week, everybody. Your donations make this work possible. I'm very blatant, Marcel, about this. We've got to keep it all going. You're doing excellent work. So now I'm going to welcome you. Welcome, Marcel, to the Warriors.
Thank you, Lynn. It's always wonderful to speak to you, and just thank you for your unmissable contribution, to shining a light on so many of these different but also overlapping dark issues. So yeah, we're deeply grateful for you, Lynn.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I want to hear about you. Recently became the president of the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, and I'm so excited to have a male voice. Is that wrong for me to say? Because I'm here in New York City, and I've always been talking to different groups and organizations about bringing more male into it to support female, but also because I don't know what you heard, you'll share with us, Marcel. Boys and young men are the fastest growing demo in trafficking in the United States. And so I think it's important for them to have role models as well. So tell us a little bit about your new journey and all of this male voice I'm talking about.
Yeah, well, thank you for that. Yeah, so Lynn, I stepped into this role, actually last year, November. Been with the National Center on Sexual Exploitation now for close to 4 years. So, huge pleasure and privilege to be in the corridors here in our brick and mortar building, but obviously just in Washington, D.C. And obviously our work, has a global footprint. And just excited to be working with an incredible team. I'm looking forward to share and having the world see who our individual team members are. They are just amazing. But I think you are hitting an important point. I think that it's well documented. This is not thumb sucking, that when we're talking about the sex trade and we're talking about the overlapping between prostitution and the harms of pornography and sex trafficking, it's overwhelmingly we find men perpetrating these kind of crimes, and at the other end of the spectrum, victims, children, women, usually women and girl children that fall prey. And again, there's obviously more research that is coming to the fore, showing where men are also victims of these crimes and also experiencing harm. So it is clearly a mercurial and a dynamic issue, and the more research are being done, the more new glimpses there are in terms of what these crimes are, how they are perpetrated, what the spectrum of victims are, but also the spectrum of perpetrators, and then the spectrum of complicity. So it's fascinating, but it's also urgent. And this is why we exist, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation. We've been around for more than 6 decades already, 62 years. Many people don't know that. So, we've kind of been around the block and see how this problem is kind of repackaged and represents itself, as time goes on. And technology and artificial intelligence obviously plays a big role in how the problem morphs between different manifestations. So, yeah.
Yes, Marcel, you just exhausted me. It is so complex, but we want the public to know. We want them to join us. We want partnerships. We want to get into the communities. We want to share the truths. We have to share the reality about a lot of things. People don't want to hear it a lot because they tell me. I don't know what they tell you, but we must, in order for us to intervene, prevent legislation. Everybody has to get on board with this. It really is a crisis, not only in America, but across the globe. What do you touched upon internet, AI? Is your focus going in that direction? Obviously it is. My focus is going in that direction. But what could you say right now you're focused on? And don't tell me the Tate brothers. We're going to get to them because they are a thorn in my side like you can't believe, but we'll get to them. But let's break it down for the public right now. Yeah. What is the center going to focus on that the public can also join in and focus on right now?
They can focus on everything we are doing. And I think there's 3 critical prongs that we are focusing on. The one is, as always, going to be consumer level demand for commercial sex, prostitution, sex trafficking. So there we focus on, and we argue, and it's, we wholeheartedly believe that we can end sex trafficking, without the people who purchase sexual access to women and children. The market forces that creates traffickers and pimps will simply not be there. Therefore, demand going after overwhelmingly men, so creating an environment that's hostile to the culture of being able to purchase sexual access to women and children. That's the first. And obviously there's pornography and the harms of pornography, and how, the harms of pornography, early access children, generally pornography, and this, how it overlaps with everything else. And then the third part, which is, all of these equally important, is holding big tech accountable. We are in the trenches fighting to repeal Section 230, which ultimately gives immunity to these big platform sites on so many levels, providing immunity and really allowing perpetrators relentless access to children, and so these are the 3 prongs to our work. And obviously the strategies we use. We continue to use public policy, civil litigation, corporate advocacy. We now have a parent center that's up and going, and then also research. So we make sure that all of our work is really grounded in research. So we're really, really excited about that, and ultimately, having a holistic approach to what is ultimately a web of sexual exploitation. None of these crimes could, you cannot cut this up into different, more manageable pieces. They are overlapping systems of systems of systems. So we think about the world and the problems we're dealing with as systems of innumerable, interconnected pieces and parts. So you need to have a mass scale approach to it, and that's what we do. We are ultimately in the business of mass scale prevention of sexual abuse and sexual exploitation.
Well, for one, I'm so happy to hear about Section 230, because that is just antiquated, doesn't hold water anymore, and needs to be, I don't even want to say amend it, and I just say sunset it. Something new has to be. But Marcel, I really want to ask something, and I mean this when I ask you this. Now get ready. I really never can understand why all of this is so difficult. I have attended event after event. It's Women's History Month here in New York. I was just with the Swedish consulate. We have lots of survivors' voices speaking out. We have this push here in New York, simmering, the legalization of prostitution. I want to know, we've had parents, I've seen you, I've seen the center, in front of Congress. We've got proof. Why is there such pushback about all of this? Is there some kind of, because I really don't understand it. When we have all of this proof, we've got big tech just running amok, runaway train. And yet it's so hard, for instance, just even COSA, Kids Online Safety Act, to get that passed. Why is there such resistance?
So I think there is it's a question that really, there's so many ways to answer it, but I will try and use what we call, if you think about the pestle model. So that's usually, and I'll go into that, what that means, but it's usually a model that's being used for some scenario planning. And you look at the world in terms of the following different systems. There are political systems, there are economic systems, there are sociological systems, there are technological systems, legal systems, and environmental systems. And the issues we deal with, Lynn, overlaps and intersects with all of those systems. And sometimes we create these little pigeonholes to kind of, it gives us the illusion of control. And by buying into that illusion that we can control things by looking at them as if they exist in its own private universes, we fail to see the connection. And we also see our agencies and departments and, all of these political economics don't often speak to each other. So that's one way of looking at it, is that it's these entangled web of bureaucracies and decision makers that doesn't always see eye to eye. And sometimes you've got red tape and competition that creeps in. So that's the one piece of it. But then there's also this globalization of indifference that is really set in over many years. And I also think that pornography, sexual objectification, the things that's in our faces, has really kind of numbed society. So you've got, comparable to the global population, you've got a very, very small group of people, advocates, that truly understand the urgency of the matter, and that's really in the trenches trying to change all of these systems and hold people accountable. And I think that is where some of the problems comes in. But it's also political will, very real political will. And you've also got people that may just not want to see any change, because there's some incentive that some people have in having this status quo continue. And then there's also just the harsh reality that traffickers, pimps, intentionally sell women and children to buyers, and buyers intentionally purchase sexual access to women and children. So you've got all of these different market forces and phenomena that overlap, and you've got this small, proverbially speaking, the 300 that shows up as an army against what is essentially a Goliath. And they are the ones in the arena. And what we see that, policy often, doesn't change that quickly, so it's being a dripping tap, being relentless, but also knowing that the needle is moving. I truly believe the needle is moving, and we've seen that just over the last 2 years with the big Senate Judiciary Committee meetings. We were in Congress last year, January 31, when big tech CEOs were grilled. We were there this year. And now for the first time, and it's been incredible to hear how senators of both sides of the aisle saying they've never seen an issue where there's been so much unanimity and kind of alliance as the issue around CDA 230. So it's knowing that, change doesn't come with a bouquet of flowers. Change takes a long time, but it's people like yourself and people like, those grassroots advocates, parents showing up and saying no more. And I do think that there is a sleeping giant of common sense that is waking up. We don't know when that giant is going to rouse, but it is waking up, and we just need to continue to nudge and prod and make a lot of noise, because victories are happen. Sometimes they seem small, but in the bigger scheme of things, they are really, really significant.
Yeah, you point out a good point. In the last 5 years, I've actually, if I think about it, there has been a lot of movement
Yeah.
in all of this when you really sit down and break it apart. I guess because I want everything yesterday, and I
Yeah.
just want to end. I just want to end demand, and then we would be able to erase a lot of problems. Um, do you think we have a new administration in Washington? What do you have any comments about any of that?
Well, I think again, I mean, NCOSE, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation, we've always strongly held onto and pride ourselves in being a non-partisan organization, you know. So we listen to everybody, we work with whoever, you know, allies and aligns with and
Yeah.
sees and are urgent about the issues we are urgent with. So we are obviously reaching out and we're building relationships and we are in the corridors and you know and trying to do whatever we can do to take anybody, whether it's a red or a blue, from a no to a maybe and from a maybe to a yes. That's what we do, you know. So we are hopeful for change. And I mean, one example is, I mean, let's just use the example of demand, Lynn. You know, we've seen one of the federal agencies like HHS, Health and Human Services, not doing a great job around the issue of consumer level demand over the last how many years. You know, so a part of what we are doing here now is you know, we came up and we've drafted, and I'm just giving you a little bit of a glimpse. We're very excited about this, but we came up with what we call the Dignity Directive, and that's something we'll probably launch in the next 2 months, where we say to the new administration, if you do this, if you follow this blueprint, the world will look radically different in 4 years. So we are addressing all the different angles to the issue of sexual exploitation, and we've pretty much got a plan for each one of these federal agencies, and HHS is one of them, because that's kind of where big part of the mandate is in terms of research, and but also messaging around accountability and men, holding men accountable and helping the world and society to see that, listen, you know, guys, you've got a big role to play, but you also need to be held accountable if you are on the wrong side of this story. So yeah, we are very hopeful. We are always hopeful, Lynn, and we just continue to show up, and we do what we do best, is using, you know, public policy, civil litigation, corporate advocacy, research to influence and move the needle towards dignity, and that's what we do.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said, because all of this work, all of this advocacy, all of it is bipartisan. It belongs to no
Yeah.
political party. Human rights abuses affecting every American,
Mm.
everybody. It hits them somewhere. Um, I like that. You know, do you think? I've always thought, you know, this trafficking belongs like with the DOJ in that department, not HHS. But that's another story. I just think people need to be held accountable on these larger scales,
Mm.
and some of the laws we have, you know, enforced. Because I know here in New York, things don't get enforced. So I'd like to see it moved to a different place. But that's me. Any buzz on that?
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, there's so many different departments of agencies that needs to be, you know, involved with this. I mean,
Yes,
obviously there's
like all
DOJ,
of them.
all of, like, literally all of them, like the CDC. If you just think about the CDC, I mean, where do they fit into human? Well, CDC need to invest in research that shows
Yeah,
that, you know, which clearly, you know, the evidence around pornography and the public health risks are really out there. But you know, CDC is in a great position to invest research and funding to really go into the multi-layered harms as it relates to pornography, and then also asking the questions, but okay, what's the nexus between pornography viewing, and sex buying, and then connecting all of those dots, because those dots needs to be connected. But here's the thing, you can't connect the dots if you haven't yet collected the dots. So you need to collect them first before you connect them. And in order to collect the dots, all of these agencies need to be at the table. And again, you know, also speaking about lived experiences and survivor leadership, which is so critical to helping us
yeah,
interpret what we have on the shelves. You know, whatever agency you are, you know, we need people, we need experts with trained eyes, and those include our survivors, to help us make sense of the data.
yeah. I mean, supporting survivors is key, and that comes with they need monies. They need to be financed. Here in New York, we're always
Clear.
fighting for that, or that's what our organization does.
Yeah,
And so I don't understand that disconnect, but it's changing a little bit because we're talking about it, kind of thing. But that's
absolutely.
the most important voice, supporting them and getting their lived experience out there. I haven't been trafficked, so I don't have a right to really talk about it unless I have. I'm glad you touched upon research because I do see a few new things coming out, Marcel. But somebody about a month ago gave me a trafficking report from 2018 to use. I won't name names. And I'm like, I can't even use this. It's too old. So much has changed since 2018. We can't use any of those stats from them. We need up to date. The monies have to be spent up to date research, and that costs money. But I'm glad, the center does such terrific research. And I'm stealing your lines about collecting the dots before connecting the dots. I'm going to put that in my warrior's pocket for now. I like
Yeah,
that very
please do.
much.
Yeah.
Now, we have to talk about them because I really don't understand the Tate brothers. I don't understand having evidence. I don't understand. I mean, whatever you want to say about it, I don't understand people support them. I'm seeing them, at these events and things. The only good news I heard lately is, Spotify kicked them off for, but what can you fill us in or share with us about that? First of all, explain a little bit for our warriors listening. Who are the Tate brothers?
Well, I mean, they are, what we now know is that they have US citizenship, but what we know about them is, they've become this cultural kind of phenomena, among men over a period of time. Our engagement with the Tate brothers is really our representation of us representing Jane Doe, who met Tristan Tate and ended up in Romania. Kind of in a alleged sex trafficking ring run by the two brothers. So that's our involvement in the Tate case, and they obviously launched this very, very malicious campaign against our Jane Doe, and including suing her and her parents for like $5 million. So we're helping her to fight back. But to your point, I mean, these are self-proclaimed, self-avowed pimps, Lynn. It's unbelievable. Once you go into open source video footage and statements that these guys are making online, it's no mystery what they tell us they are. We don't have to ask them what they are. They're telling us who they are. And it's very, very problematic, and it raises deep and dense ethical questions, if you want to use the word ethical questions, in terms of the proximity that some very, very well-known, whether you want to use the word politicians and or influencers, have to these brothers. So it's very problematic, and it's problematic on multiple levels, because some of the framing is, oh well, these are just kind of two guys. There's a whole world of harm that you can focus on. I would argue these two guys is a world of harm. If you think about their influence culturally, they are effectively a comprehensive system of mis and disinformation, violence, harm, misogyny. What do you want to say? So their footprint globally is enormous. Last week, I spoke to two people on different sides of the globe. One of them is a family member in South Africa, and they know absolutely nothing about the allegations against these two guys. All they know about these two guys is the fact that everybody, all the teenage young boys back home and elsewhere in the world, are talking about them and kind of hero worshipping these guys. So we've got a problem. I mean, there is a plethora of open source evidence, and obviously we are continue doing our work that really implicates these two in very, 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 very serious crimes, and they need to be held accountable. And we are determined to do whatever we need to do to support our Jane Doe and ultimately hold Andrew and Tristan Tate accountable, because they truly do represent a global system of harm. There's no way that you can diminish and or sugarcoat that. And we need people to see that. And for those people, a lot of them conservatives, right, who sides with the Tate brothers, think again, because they will be exposed. And there's already a sleeping giant waking up on social media, where people are changing their opinions about what they think and thought about these two. So, and I think we need to continue to prod and make sure that they are held accountable.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, there's so much video evidence, right? I guess when I say video evidence to you, Marcel, they have such a massive following of boys and teens and young men of what should I say? How to pimp a woman. I mean, those are some just kind of, they put it out there. Like, these are the tutorials we'll give you, pay us, and we'll give you these tutorials how to do it. It is so blatant and disgusting. And I want to go back. You pointed out something good. I always think about, I do think society, like, it's so normalized, all this sexualization. I think they're habituated they've tuned out. They are numb. But I think it's our job, and you're doing it, I'm doing it, many are doing it. We just keep chipping away on a daily basis. Because I don't know about you, but I get a lot in New York City. I didn't know that. I bet you if we walked outside now in Times Square and we asked about the Tate brothers, I bet you 99% wouldn't really know. Oh, I heard the name. They really wouldn't know about the Tate brothers. Yeah. They wouldn't understand that really a global impact on society as a whole, and feeding into our vulnerable populations. And that's where that's a whole nother program we have to get.
And then I think that the other thing is, I mean, you've got a growing, I mean, I don't have the numbers, but we know, I mean, social media, isolation, loneliness, the fragmentation of relationships, these guys very opportunistically, and I would say cunningly, they are jumping into a crevice where people need something. So there's this void, and they see it, and they monetize it, and they bounce on it, and people are falling for it, and it's causing harm, and it's and I think that, again, coming back to the issue of men as parents, whether it's a coach, whether it's a spiritual leader, teachers, we need to step in, and we need to represent healthy manhood. What does that even look? Because what these guys are showing us it's antithetical to anything that's helpful to society at large, or on a one-on-one relational level. So we need to step up, and we need to be a voice of reason, and speak into those crevices which these guys have clearly hijacked.
Yeah. And just one other point, as you're talking, we talk a lot about, Tate brothers or whatever, but everybody forgets, like, when we talk about them, there's always those victims, right? Or those survivors, that it's a lifelong trauma, any of this exploitation for them. And that piece always kind of gets forgotten, right? With all these headlines going on about the Tate brothers, that it's always those people, it trickles down, vulnerable, trauma, the rest of their lives. And we have to always remember about that. This is a lifelong trauma for people who get involved in all of this. Let me ask you about, where are we going in 2025 with legislation? You touched upon, Section 230 a little bit. What are you hearing? Anything you can share with us coming out of Washington?
Yeah, well, I think, the App Store Accountability Act, Utah was the first state that passed the App Store Accountability Act. Yes. And we feel that every state should be passing the App Store Accountability Act, which really puts power back in the hands of parents, where ages are verified in terms of when these age-restricted apps where people try to download stuff and access material. So, I mean, that's a big one. We hope to see the Takedown Act, coming in full force and being passed. That's a big one. And ultimately, we're going to continue fighting for federal level, anything that holds, sex buyers, the demand side of sex trafficking accountable. And ultimately, CDA 230 is huge for us, Huge. It's massive.
That to me is the biggest. That to me, Marcel, is like, I don't mean to interrupt you, but like, to me, that would help everything.
Yeah. And I mean, again, we've been in both Senate Judiciary Committee hearings. It was fascinating. And again, just hats off to Senator Josh Hawley. You know, the guy always comes into the room very well prepared, calling a spade a spade. But the point is, big tech, they fear very, very little. I mean, the hubris there is crazy. But what they do fear is parents being able to sue and hold them accountable, you know. So it's really, you know, democratizing the power in the hands of parents to actually sue big tech. You know, they're going to be paying a lot of money once that actually happens, and the relevant sections, or 230 in you know, as a whole being repealed. That's one piece of it. But yeah, so that's a big thing. And again, you know, we were in the room, Dr. Eleanor Gaitan and me, we were personally invited 3 weeks ago to be in the room when the First Lady Melania Trump spoke about the Take It Down Act, and there were more media in the room, Lynn, than there were people. But that was so encouraging, you know, just her certitude, the way that she articulated the problem, and the way that she implored people, decision makers across political lines to really just buy into this. So having the First Lady in a room speaking directly to the Take It Down Act, and actually having 3 or 4, I think, minor survivors sitting next to her at the table was so inspiring.
Yeah, I was so happy when I saw that, because she does bring along, let's face it, a lot of media attention.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought anything is good to showcase, you know, I'm hoping her Be Best campaign, that she'll continue with more of this, and really having those minors there, I thought was very powerful. To me, this can be her whole Be Best campaign. So I have a feeling she's going to go in this direction, and it's actually wonderful. It brings a lot of positivity to the whole thing. Let me ask you something before we finish up. So I was in schools here in New Jersey yesterday teaching digital safety, 6th, 7th, and 8th grades. Okay. And the kids have to have parents or caregivers sign, you know, the slip that they're allowed to be in this workshop with me. And we did 8 classrooms. And I was very surprised, Marcel. A third of the parents opted their children out. They would not allow them to learn. And obviously with the ages, we're very careful, you know, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade, but we want reality. You know, 8th grade, they're already like adults these days. There's no middle kind of thing. 8th grade, they're like gone, you know, big. They know a lot. And careful with everything, the way we speak. And why do you think parents would opt out? I was a little taken aback that many, a third of the students. And I just remember one boy in the 7th grade, as he had to leave the room when we came in because he didn't have the permission slip. And the guidance counselor said, you know, you don't have it. And he looked at me, and very earnestly, and he said, I really wish I could stay for this. I want to learn about it. But my mom wouldn't sign the slip. It was very sad to me, actually. And so I want to get around that somehow a little bit. But do you think they're just scared? Or it's cultural or something? Why wouldn't they allow a little digital safety education?
Yeah, well, you know, I don't want to speculate, but also obviously with knowledge comes responsibility.
But you're an expert, and I want your expert voice so I can use
look,
it.
I think with that knowledge, you know, there's obviously, you know, Lynn, I think what we've seen at NCOSE is that so many parents feel overwhelmed, just so overwhelmed with anything related to even digital safety, technology and all of these things. So I can't answer directly in terms of why a third of those parents didn't want to sign the slip.
No, I know. I'm picking your brain, so to speak, because I was a little taken aback.
Well,
so I'll tell you why. Just to interject, the night before, I did an online tutorial with parents could sign up. We did a webinar. So we could discuss things. They could ask questions anonymously or use their name, just to give them an overall of what, I did the whole write-up. But I just thought, we know, you point out, everybody's so overwhelmed these days. It really is like getting hit with a hammer every day on the head. I get it. You get it. Kids yesterday were telling me, 12 years old, I like to run to relieve stress. They're just telling me this. I do breathing techniques to relieve stress. The good news is, because I do very immersive, they're like, well, if somebody contacts me at the DM, we block, we do not engage. Every classroom was telling me. So I thought that was a positive. that they're already talking. Whether all of them actually do that, that's another story, but very smart and savvy. So I want the parents to know the kids are hearing and learning things anyway. And I want to get
Mm.
more of the parents on board to be warriors with you, in the center and with me, so we can snowball this and get it done. But I thought that was interesting that
That
about a
was
third would opt out.
that is interesting. That is interesting, Lynn. And I think yeah, and I think again, we need, we need an army to fight this, and parents are really at the tip of the spear, especially with regards to their children. But thank you for what you are doing, and I hope this feedback and what you've learned in these lessons can loop back to the parents whose children was not in the audience. I think it's so important to know that this is how these are all part of protective behaviors that you inculcate, and you build these defenses that we hope will repel those arrows that inevitably are targeted at children. So it's just invaluable, the work that you
Yeah,
do.
I just thought, let me just ask Marcel, because I think the next time we go into the school, more kids will sign up. The parents will allow. It was such a good reaction from the kids and how they participated. And, I'm a stranger to them coming in, right? So I thought it was really good. They want to talk to us. They want to hear about these things. They want to know what to do. I thought that was very positive. Okay, finish us up. Final thoughts. What would you like to share with our warriors that they should be focused on, think about, anything?
Yeah. Well, I'm just looking at I was thinking our conversation, so many things we've covered, but I think at the end of the day, we need to create a system that looks remarkably similar to the system that perpetrates these crimes. But we are the good guys, right? So what can we learn? I mean, it's agile. People are, the bad guys are always informed. They're connected. There's camaraderie, and so how do we create a system that presents a hostile environment where these crimes, and these compromises cannot exist? Where we deoxygenate what these perpetrators and technologies thrive on, and a lot of that is impunity, a lot of it is indifference, and a lot of it is being able to function with anonymity and being able to function in the dark. So, and I always tell people, no amount of darkness can snuff out the light of a single candle. And I think it's for all of us to become candles and to make sure that we continue to burn, and then obviously collectively we are able to really just expose things for what they are. And I see that happening. When we go to these CD8 to 30, these hearings, it's happening, and the needle is moving, and we need people to show up. We need people to join Lynn's warriors, and those parents whose kids weren't there yesterday, well, hopefully next term when you show up, more parents will sign up and make sure that those 1/3 becomes part of the bigger whole, that he fully equips their children with knowledge and the defenses that's necessary to repel these attacks on our future generation.
Yeah, those are great final words. I always say, Marcel, 99% of it is showing up, showing up to learn and hear and share information. Well, I want to thank you for taking the time to join me today. The website, everybody, endsexualexploitation.org. I will have all of your information, a donate button, everything, your studies, all of it for everybody to take their time to read through, to study, to join up, to know about legislative actions, because that's another thing. We need people to sign on and get their warriors to sign on to that. I want to say to you, Marcel Vanderwatt, thank you. You truly are a warrior, and I'm very excited. And I'll be in Washington soon, so
Wonderful.
Perhaps we will get together.
Have coffee or something. That will be wonderful, Lynn.
I'll
Thanks
see
for
you soon.
everything.
Oh, you're very welcome. Take good care.
You
Thank
too.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.